Hello, everyone, and welcome to Answer the Call. Word of warning, there is a tornado warning here right now. It is incredibly windy outside, and it's kind of freaky. But tornado warnings in Florida aren't usually as bad as like tornadoes in the Midwest, so it shouldn't be too crazy. If anything, like a little bit of roof damage or something like that. Now, I also want to start out the show with this is the Answer the Call podcast. And this is a show where typically I come on myself and I share a feeling about something. And my thing today is, why is CIG still releasing quarterly? But the main focus of the podcast is to have you guys, the people who listen on Twitch and the guys who listen on YouTube, to come on the show yourself. So we do this every Sunday at around 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's 10:47. I'm a little bit late today because Jumptown, we're having some fun. And I feel mega strongly about this. This topic I've sort of changed my mind about recently, and I want to talk to you guys with you guys about it. So if you guys want to join the show today, discord.gg/SaltEMike, and pop into the queue in the green room under the Answer the Call podcast section. If you're watching on YouTube any other day, 10 a.m. Eastern time on Sundays. And I usually will release on Twitter and in Discord the subject of today's show. But because I was having so much fun with Jumptown, I may have forgotten, so I didn't do it this week. But my thoughts on why is CIG still releasing quarterly. Let's look at 3.15 versus 3.16, right? 3.15 was a monumental patch. Medical, inventory, looting, huge things we all know. We've all been playing it. Now we get 3.16, which brings Jumptown, but not a whole lot with it. And also, not a whole lot of fixes from 3.15. I wonder if the quarterly releases makes a situation where we're not getting features that come together and work together often enough, like the way that looting, inventory, and medical all do. They all work together really well, and they all came together. 3.15 was a very interesting patch. And I wonder if there's a way, basically what I'm trying to get at is I feel like there's a way to get more 3.15s to happen in the future. And I almost feel like it's better, like, I don't know. Do you guys remember what was in 3.14, 3.13? I don't. And I almost feel like it's better to get a couple patches a year instead of 3, 4, or better to get 3 patches instead of 4 sometimes, because then you end up getting duds and you end up honestly waiting 6 months for any legitimate content. So what's the difference anyway, right? The difference would be that I think whatever patch that we did get would be more focused by the dev team and more paid attention to, so it's cleaner, less bugs, comes in where systems are working together. Maybe we don't have a awful UI like we do with inventory, things like that. That's how I feel about this situation. Now, I'm going to hold off on the first caller for a little bit longer, but he came with a very good point in Twitch chat, and I really asked him to come on today because he also has a very good point that contradicts what I feel. It's what I feel. It may not be logical, and I want to hear what you guys think and what you're feeling and what logic's going through your head. 3 patches feels appropriate. Maybe even 2. How many games that you play out there in the world that are delivering 4 patches a year? Significant patches. There's not that many. Like, MMOs and really well put together games typically aren't delivering features, whole systems, massive changes, significant patches, yes, that are that often. It just doesn't work, right? So you can deliver patches that are fixes, that are balances, that are live service like patches, right? But most games that I've played, and people are mentioning EFT included, is not delivering 3 major patches, 3 wipe patches a year, excuse me. They're not releasing quarterly in that way. I usually don't respond to chat, but somebody also said, forget comparing to other games. It's a totally different beast. It needs to not be a totally different beast anymore. That is I'm going to get a megaphone out and start screaming from the rooftops. It needs to start being treated like other games. We're in a situation where, yes, Star Citizen absolutely still is an alpha, but as I've been screaming from the rooftops over the last few weeks, maybe even months, is that it is also a live service. So in order for Star Citizen to feel and be more like a live service, I think we need to start releasing feature-based patches. Inventory, looting, medical is a great patch. What's next? Selling, cargo rework, persistence hangers. What's after that? I don't know. Maybe physical inventories, physicalized components, and armor, right? Things like that. So you go, these are the features we want to deliver. You got the team focused on those things. These are the dates we want to hit, but we fix it until it's ready, and then we release it. I'm not asking for 3.0. So anybody comes at me and goes, we don't want another 3.0. 3.0 was nothing about what I'm saying. 3.0 was making Star Citizen a reality, and it took them a year to do it. That is not what I'm asking for. I'm asking to focus on features that communicate with each other, that we can come into the game. When they are in the game, they are working, they are usable. They may not be in a perfect state. They may not be tier 3. They might still be like tier 1, tier 0, but they work together. They make sense, things like that. That's how I feel. Now, without further ado, I don't think we have the name up, so let me go ahead and kind of prep that, because I was a little off on this one. We're going to go ahead and add the first caller's name here, who is Shempasta. And Shempasta had a really good idea. A really, really good idea. And I'm almost ready here, guys. Sorry about that. Hello, Shempasta. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How's it going?
It's going wonderful. Let me get out of studio mode here and switch over. Hello. So, Shempasta basically had a point that he made that I think was totally contradictory to what I am feeling. I am feeling emotions and maybe not feeling as... My feelings may not translate to logic as much. So, what did you feel, Shempasta? What did you think?
So you definitely have some valid points. I guess to give you a little bit of background for me, I actually just started playing Star Citizen in November in IAE.
Okay.
And I did see the Kickstarter way back when, like 10 years ago. Didn't really think much of it. Then all of a sudden I kept hearing more about it, like the whole normal stuff, like it's a scam or it's this and that.
Sure.
I played Cyberpunk 2077 and was like, okay, this is really terrible. And then I started just, I don't know, looking at Star Citizen and just the gameplay and everything. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm hearing 2 different stories here. So I started digging into it. And to be honest with you, I am in IT and a developer. And
yeah,
what really hooked me into Star Citizen was the tech that they're talking about, because the server meshing and everything, it's like the holy grail of what anyone who's ever played a video game ever wants, which is everyone in one world. And that kind of drew me in. And then I heard about IAE, so then I participated in that. And so, yeah, now I'm like trying to learn as much as I can about Star Citizen. the interesting thing here is that I don't have any of the history that you guys have, or the people who've been backing for like 10 years. So for me, it almost jumped from I think 314 to 315 really quickly. So for me, loot boxes and the medical gameplay and all the gameplay was like, oh yeah, duh, it's supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, what are people talking about? Like this game's not playable. I man, this is how bad it was. I had to look up what 30K was because I thought it was actually a feature, not a server crash,
It
because I didn't
was a
experience
feature.
any. That's true. Some could say it was.
Yeah.
But I really had to Google it because I was like, what is this 30K thing? Because I never experienced one while playing. So now I have a couple, but it's not anywhere close to where it used to be, it seems like. But I think I resonate with what you're saying, Mike. Like, come on, guys, focus on the feet, like CIG, focus on the features. Let's get this going because it's a very playable game. Because I've been playing it, and yeah, I've had my issues falling through planets and stuff like that. But um, it's still an alpha. But I think I understand what you're saying. It's an alpha for them, but it's not alpha for us anymore.
No.
Like because it's so playable.
Yeah. And what you mentioned
Um,
something about certain features that are not playable. You mentioned things like meshing, and I think that that highlights the fact that it is an alpha, right? And it is what's contradictory to the point that I made originally was if those features aren't there, you're not in a place necessarily where you have Star Citizen is out and it's possible, it's a thing. It's there, we're playing it, but it's in this weird in between state right now. So it might be, and you have this developer background, it might be more difficult to do feature based releases without having that framework of server meshing and persistence and all the things you would expect from an MMO, right? Is lots of servers and yeah, when you leave something on the ground and you come back, it's there. Like it might get cleaned up eventually, but the way the game is now is incredibly inconsistent with those things. So yeah, and that's what I kind of hammered in on, and what you said was like, yeah, he's right too, but I kind of wonder what everyone else thinks about because the last 2 years, to just give you some history, is there was
mhm.
quite a few, like 3 out of the 4, 2 out of the 4 patches felt like duds every year, and maybe there was like one cool little thing that they put in a patch, but it never really made sense as a whole with the group until 315. So you're really lucky in what patch you came in because 315 was like literally the best patch they ever had in terms of like feature additions. It was one of the buggiest, I think, but
Yeah,
feature addition
absolutely.
wise, it was great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I have my, the whole inventory thing where you have to do it 3 times or something like that to actually get it from like the loot box to your inventory and stuff like that. But so I've definitely experienced all those bugs, and it's been frustrating as well. When you do a box mission and you have to deliver multiple boxes in a space station, and you're scared to leave one down, like
Yeah.
downstairs somewhere. um, but yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. They're building the foundation out. If they start focusing on features, then the foundation's going to crumble. Is how I look at it.
Okay.
Because some of the tech that they're doing, and I think some of these other YouTubers that I also watch, um, they're trying to make a smooth game or a smooth gameplay for people across multiple regions, and then I think I also heard about Quanta as well, and that's going to balance the whole system out across the world, and that's a lot of code that's being put into there. And what we may be experiencing is that middle ground of it's about to start leaving alpha from CIG's point of view and start moving into beta, and we're just kind of here like, hey guys, you got a game that you can play. Why you keep calling it alpha? And I think it's just that transitionary period.
Mm-hmm.
But from my perspective and what I've, some of the developer stuff I've watched, they're really putting an effort into making a solid back end, and it just takes time. And It's just how do you keep everything synced? How do you keep that persistence? How do you scale all of that to tens of thousands of people playing on one server potentially, or one shard or whatever? Um, and so I think this is they're using this opportunity to really make that solid. The only example I can kind of give is like this Ares Inferno and Ion situation where they came out with it really powerful, and a lot of people are like, "Hey, they just did it to sell ships and stuff." Yeah, I'm sure they did as well, but then they rebalanced it really quick, and I think that's just what you have to expect, because they don't want one ship to be more powerful than everything else in the whole system, or everyone will just get that one ship. And that's like a good example of, I think, what would happen. We'd see more of those scenarios if they started just working on features, in my opinion, as opposed to trying to make sure that everything's balanced in the universe, which relies on a good solid technical foundation where there is no like server lagging or anything like that. So
True, but
from a developer
you
perspective,
can't have a ship like that when you're going to have Jumptown coming up in a week from that point, right? When once they realize that this is problematic, you're a week out from when Jumptown needs to go live. You're a week out from when Ninetales needs to go live. And that's like one of the things where it's you have no choice but to do something, and maybe it's not what everybody wanted, but I think that's what it is. I don't want to hammer home on the Ion too much because this is something that like people are tired of hearing about at this point, and I'm definitely tired of talking about it. But in general, I think here's what I'll say, and I'm going to take this in a totally different direction. Anytime there's bugs in the game, this is what happens. Like you release 3.15, there are a plethora of bugs. It was disastrous how many bugs there were. And it was expected because look at how crazy the features were. That was the most things they've put into the game in a while. We expected them. They're there. Okay. What didn't happen was the consistent patches of cleaning up those bugs. Like there was a lot of, well, sorry guys, you have to wait for the .1 patch in order to get those bug fixes. That's all planned for then. So from, being a developer, I understand one of the reasons why they're probably not releasing patches to live that often is because it costs so much money. But at the same time, it's like you're leaving people who want to play the game in a state where there was a point in 3.15 where it's not playable. You can't play the entire game without massive game breaking bugs at bunkers and some other things. So you come into a situation where it has to be treated more like a live service, but it's not being treated as a live service. So now I'm trying to find like what's a better way of doing this. Well, why don't we release less patches and make sure the patches that we do release need less patches to fix? Like that's my solution to the problem.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think when they kind of took out all those features in 3.16 and they came out with that statement of we're doing this for stability.
It was like, why patch in the first place then?
Yeah, well, so as a developer, there's still some things you want to get out there. And then sometimes you don't know what you'll throw out there that will affect something else. And
Of
that's the
course.
game of all of this. Especially because it's such a complicated system between Quanta and them trying to put some parts of server meshing in and stuff like that. So I think they really wanted to put 3.16 out there to fix some of the bugs that you're talking about, but they probably found some other stuff that made it completely unusable. But I think, pinpoint on something you said in the past, which was thank God they did that, because
Yeah.
we don't want to go into the holiday season with an unplayable game. That would have turned everyone off.
Yep.
I think something that might be really positive is maybe not this year, or maybe towards the latter part, but if they start moving from quarterly to like 3 times a year or something like that, that'll show that it's maturing, if that makes sense. So that
Mm-hmm.
shows that their back end's maturing, they're more confident in their back end, and they can go longer without having to feel the need that they need to get this tested.
Yeah.
And so I think if we do, it's inevitable. I don't think any game can do 4 patches a year and actually have a stable game. And so I think, I like to think that they have that much knowledge that they understand that maybe 1 or 2 patches a year is what's
One
gonna be the final result.
one is unacceptable, but two in a game in the state that it is now that needs more features, if you're only releasing one patch a year, okay, how about this? A game that is not only still needing features and still needs lots of things to complete, one patch a year is no way doable. But also because the game is so large, it is very difficult to QA. So if you're only releasing 2 patches a year or 1 patch a year, then there is a 0% chance that when you actually do push that patch to live, or even a PTU, that there's not going to be an insane amount of bugs that we find that they didn't. Because we're the ones who find, I would imagine, a majority of the game-breaking issues that arose. I bet there are quite a few that do not, that get past QA. Because some of them should never get past QA if they knew they were there, right? These massive ones that like need to be fixed and flagged and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think in the software development world these days, everything's so complicated that you have to definitely take care of the big known bugs, the low-hanging fruit. But then there's always going to be these edge cases that they can't test for, because sometimes how do you test a feature with 1,000 people playing on it unless 1,000 people are playing on it? You know, like you only have so many testers in your company. So you maybe have 100 or 200 testers that you can say, okay, guys, all 200 of y'all play this.
Exactly.
You may not find any issue. Yeah, no issues, no memory bugs, no nothing.
But then
once you get...
Go ahead. Apologize.
Oh, yeah, and then once you get like 500, all of a sudden everything craps out.
Yep.
So...
But then here's where we come into like a huge dilemma too, is you have the live build, which should be probably slightly better than the experiences that we're having now. We have some massively annoying bugs that maybe we can fix. Like, you know, when your weapon doesn't go away, like you try to stow it, it keeps stowing, or you try to take it out, keeps stowing. That one's really annoying. There's quite a few that, you know, you can just go down the list. And there's some that we just would not want there. But the live build should probably be kept in as pristine a state as possible. But then what happens is how do you get players to play the PTU and get behind being a unpaid QA tester to kind of figure all those things out and report those bugs to CIG? How do we get them out there and get excited about doing something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. If they open the PTU up to more people, and put all of the bleeding edge technology in there and all the new features and everything in there, and then in the normal PU, kind of go to kind of what you're saying, like maybe a 3 times a year update. My feeling is those people who are really going to play it are going to be curious about what those new features are, because I have been as well. And that's kind of taken me to the PTU or figure out how to get that set up.
Yeah.
And so I think the people who are really playing it will say, hey, I want the cargo refactor, but they're not going to release it in the PU for another 3 more months. So let me go to the PTU and go play it. And there's also less risk, I think, there, because it's just a copy of your account or something like that. So I think that will naturally happen. But I do agree with you. It has to start maturing that way. My hope is that as they're at the latter, it feels like they're at the latter part of the alpha stage from a technical perspective. And I think if they get these 3 or 4 pillars in, like server meshing, persistence, the Gen 12 renderer, Vulkan even, I think if they can cram at least 3, like persistence and server meshing and stuff like that, or parts of server meshing into this year, it'll help them transition to beta, where I think you'll see less releases in the PU and more in the PTU, hopefully. And then we will get a stable game that normal people can play and not have to worry about all these bugs and everything, knowing that the features are going to keep maybe sliding even, but coming out in the future.
Sure.
And then the hardcore people can then go to the PTU to become unpaid alpha testers, basically.
Yeah. I know, that's just like a meme thing to say, but the thing that I run into that is really problematic is I absolutely lose interest in the PTU very quickly, because, all right, I saw the feature. It doesn't take long to see it. It's usually very incomplete and very basic. And then there is zero progress to make in the PTU. You have 15 million credits. You have all the ships. You have access to everything. There's no point in playing.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. Yeah.
That is a massive challenge, because you can't get that pristine live build without creating a scenario where people actually want to go and play the PTU. Because look at something like the cargo refactor that you mentioned. How many PTU patches do you think there's going to be? There's going to be a lot.
Yes. Yep.
So what happens? How do you keep people downloading that PTU, reporting those bugs, trying it again and again and again?
Yeah, and I think that's
It's
the
literal
rock
work.
and hard place. Yep, yep. And I think that's why they may not care sometimes if it does if they put out a patch that doesn't go well, because it keeps everyone entertained in that aspect. But I can tell you though, as in general, the software development industry has transitioned to your users being testers.
Yeah,
And I mean, I had to name drop, but it's like Windows 10 and 11. That's all that was
of course.
Microsoft. Yeah, every feature update, it's like you break a whole bunch of stuff, and you're like, why did they even do they not test this internally? So in that aspect, and then also with the launch of like Battlefield and some of these other games where it's like Cyberpunk 2077, it's like, did no one test this? Did they just really say, hey guys, we're in general release, let's just send it out? So I don't knock CIG too much on the why are we testing it? And the main reason is because they're so transparent. Like they just tell you everything. You can look at their financials, which I haven't, but you can. If they didn't have that transparency, I'd be a lot more skeptical into what they're trying to do. Also, some other thoughts I've had is what they're trying to do as a company is it's kind of revolutionary. I don't know of any other gaming studio or gaming company or game that's tried to be at the scale that they're trying to be at. And so, for me, again, as a developer, I kind of give them a little bit of a pass on that. So it seems like they're getting all the tech in to have a really massive environment where thousands and thousands of people can be in it. So
To be skeptical, if you
mhm.
believe them, like if you believe it's possible. And I think we're
Ye-
all here because we hope and believe that it might be. But if you believe every word that comes out of their mouth, then farming would
yeah, I'm
be
not
in
saying
3.4. So
absolutely. No, I'm not saying believe them, but you can tell, you can look at trends. So it's a moonshot goal to get the whole world onto one
I've been
server.
around
But
for a while, and I see a lot of trends, and those trends
I got you.
contradict what you just said.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like
Yeah,
I said, I just joined this
yeah,
community.
those
Um,
trends contradict.
yeah, well, hopefully, hopefully, as since we did get such a great playing experience from 3.16, as things do mature, I think this is the coming of age for Star Citizen, because in the next couple of years, it feels like they can't keep using oh, we're still working on server meshing, we're still working on these core technologies anymore, because it sounds like they're coming to getting those finished. And I think that's the litmus test for me, anyways. But I'm new as well, so yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
been through the 10 years. But for me, the litmus
server
test
meshing
is,
has been 1 year away since 2018.
oh man, yeah, that's tough.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
now it's
also,
just static server meshing and not even the dynamic.
yeah, not the
Before they
full
just
server
wrote
meshing.
server meshing. So,
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think that kind of shows how difficult what they're trying to do is. But I'm not trying to make excuses either for them. I'm just trying to bring a technical perspective to it.
I appreciate it.
Um,
I'm also just trying to give you a little bit of the history as well
yeah,
of
yeah, no, I
why
appreciate that.
we may be more skeptical about what they say and where they're at right now, and why we may not believe exactly where they are. For example, if they say we'd like to get this out by the end of the year, which is what they said for static server meshing, I don't believe them. It will be next
Yep.
year. It will be next year. Like, mark my words. We've been there, done that for years. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and I can see that can get frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
It just feels like, I mean, some of the updates they're bringing out about some of these core technologies, it feels like they are getting close to finishing. But from a developer point of view, it's really interesting when you're
Even from a
planning this stuff.
backer, it feels like they're working on it and not just talking
Mhm.
about it, which is
Yeah.
a good sign.
Yes, yeah, there are those little nuggets for sure.
Yeah.
If they completely went silent on it, I'd be a little worried.
Hmm.
But especially for their core technologies. Now, if they go silent on some of these other things, features right now, I'm not as concerned as long as they don't go silent on those core technologies that they're talking about. That's going to be the base of the game. But I do feel that once beta comes out, you'll still have bugs and everything, but then that's when I'm expecting them to work on features because that's kind of how it goes, you know,
Yeah,
like in alpha.
we
Yeah.
know. Trust me, we know. You don't have to explain this part. We know what an alpha is and we know what a beta is.
Hmm.
The problem is the because like alpha you're putting features in and beta you're cleaning up those stuff or whatever. But
Hmm.
the problem here is we've been in alpha since 2012. So like you have to understand that your normal software development stuff does not apply here. Does not apply. This is a very unique beast that borderlines on insane for the scale they're trying to go for their willingness to do certain things in a certain way. Uh, it's amazing that it still works, and I'm happy it still does. So I am in no way trying to bash these things, but Shimpasta, I have a very hard time listening to developers say this is how software development is when in no way, shape, or form would a company allow a game or a piece of software to be in the state that this one is in and the lack of features completed for the overall project for as long as it has been. And that is one of the things where I go, okay, I understand what we have now. How do we make and I understand that these guys are going to take forever. What are we going to do to make the experience that we have now better? How do we improve this ridiculous thing and make it a little bit less ridiculous and a little bit more like your normal software development? And that's where I go, do we need to release quarterly? Do we need to try to hit these dates? And because we're hitting these dates, we're getting really crappy versions of features that don't need to be this crappy and really buggy missions and features and characters and everything. Um,
Yeah.
that's
No,
that's the core argument that you and I need to continue to have.
absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. This is definitely not normal in the software development world. But
Yeah.
I think because they start off with a Kickstarter, I kind of look at it like, what if it was just investment money? It could have literally taken this long behind the scenes with like basically a stealth startup, um,
It
trying
would
to
have
work on all
ended
these
up like Cyberpunk,
technologies.
which isn't a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing at all.
Yeah.
No, I think they had this thing of because they went crowdsourcing, which was never done before for a video game, as far as I know. They basically were like, hey, we have to be super transparent and we have to have something that's playable really soon, or our backers, you know, aren't going to be happy. And I think that's why it became this abnormal cycle for an alpha cycle.
Hmm.
For me, from everything I've learned on Star Citizen, I feel it should get to back on track to what normal software development is when the beta hits. But that's just me because once the beta hits, they
Yeah.
don't have any excuses. Um, you
And
know,
what you mean by beta, so let's try and clarify that a little bit from your perspective. And I think it's what you said in the chat earlier. It's getting those core features like server meshing and that kind of stuff in, right?
correct. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
like four pillars, I believe, and whatever those four pillars are,
There's like
I
30
think.
pillars now, but yeah,
Well,
I know
oh
what you
man,
mean.
yeah. I mean, the big ones. Yeah, yeah. There are a whole bunch of mini pillars, but like the
Yeah.
big ones that keep everything up.
Oryx
It
2.0
is.
was one.
Oh yeah. No,
That's a big pillar, by the way.
yeah, yeah. All right, yeah. So as long as they're continuing to, as long as we keep their feet to the fire on those big pillars and make sure those get done, I feel that after that, it has to become a normal software development cycle because you can't get normal people to play it in the state it currently is either. I was able to do it because I was super interested and all of that, and I could put up with the bugs and things like that. But
Sure.
yeah, what I mean by beta is that those 4 or 5 major back end technologies are in place. Now they'll still have bugs because all software has bugs,
Of course.
but it won't be any major overhauling. Like if you have a car and you're restoring it, you can't do anything until the engine's actually done, complete, and inside the thing. And that's what I'm looking for these pillars. It's done inside the game. It's working. It's 90% there, and that's your beta. And then from there, I think it's exactly what you said is they have to then focus on features and
Yeah.
finish those features off, not piecemeal different features at different times. But yeah, so that's what that means to me. So
Sure. And I actually agree with you, but I'm going to put a little but in there. If you are looking at Star Citizen from the perspective of my eyes, and somebody who's been around since 2013 and seen we're really close, guys, and we just got to finish this tech, and they've been talking about server meshing for a long time, and some of these core pillars for a long time. They get, every CitizenCon they say the words, but there's not that much action. And we're going to go back to what I said. For once, it feels like they're actively working on some of those pillars instead of just talking about them. Big positive, right? So not trying to be overly negative about the subject. How do you, and this will be like the last thing we talk about, I guess, before we go to the next caller. How do you look at the game and go, okay, quarterly patches are a good idea still? Like, is it possible to still focus on features that are maybe a bit more low-hanging fruit, or focus on quality of life for the current experience and deliver, I don't know, which it's what they are doing now, is things like the cargo refactor and so on and so forth, while they're waiting for this tech to complete. Does it, all I'm asking for, and I'm not asking for focus on features, let's get mining in a perfect state, like finished how we want it written in our design documents. I'm not talking about getting salvage how you have it written in your design documents. I don't think exploration should just appear out of nowhere. I'm talking about more of the low-hanging fruit type stuff, like cargo, better medical that makes sense, like actually getting an injury before going down and, actively having to use the system, better inventories, and just better ways for players to interact with each other and experience the current experience better. So the only solution that came to my mind was go release less often and focus on polishing it more, and utilize us in a more effective way to jump into a PTU and test.
yeah, so yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. I think so. You know how with cargo hauling or trading, when there used to be a lot of 30Ks, you
Yes.
basically lose all your stuff if it happened. But then they
Sure.
put this thing in where if you call the landing pad and then a 30K happens, then all your stuff's still there. I
Well,
think
they put a thing
stuff.
in it. Not, you don't even have to call the landing pad.
Oh, okay, I got you. I thought you
So
did.
it just checks every 10 minutes what's in your ship.
Oh, okay, I didn't. I wasn't aware of that. So
Yeah,
that's even better.
it's way better. Yeah, and it was I don't know why they did it randomly, and it seemed like a really easy fix from the way they made it sound, and it just happened, and they actually cared about us. That was awesome. Those are the
Yeah,
kind
that
of
definitely.
things. But what I mean, like, just before you continue, I mean going into the next. So we released 315. Then their focus should be on what can the next bit of low hanging fruit that can work together and be interesting that we can deliver, all at the same time, while kind of bringing that 315 into a better into a better place, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think they are kind of like that low hanging, oh, not low hanging fruit, but they solve that problem, but it's a hack. It's not the final thing. I
Yes.
think with cargo refactoring and medical, so I know they want everything to be physicalized. And from what I've seen, read, heard, until they get some type of persistence that's reliable across servers,
Mm-hmm.
all of that's going to be even harder. Um, And so I think that's why they moved from like, hey, we're gonna have dynamic server or not server meshing, but dynamic persistence to static persistence as a stepstone to that. I would assume that once they get static in there, it's an in between where then they can start working on what you are talking about, which is hey,
Okay.
let's build these features on that. But you know what? Something does come to my mind. They could always do a major minor release, and so
Yep.
actually have four releases where they do a major release, then they do a minor one to fix everything and tie in some of the gameplay. Like, okay, this gameplay is now broken, so let's fix it. I recall, I think mining was broken for a very long time, and there's still stuff right now that's broken. And so it would be interesting if they did go that way, where they do a major release and it's going to completely tank the game, or partially tank it, and then they quickly follow up with minor releases that fix everything, and then tie together temporarily the gameplay that makes it fun, right? At least do a like what is it like the Argo raft, or I think that's a cargo one.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take the containers off, but you can still use it to trade or put stuff in, right? So
Yeah.
that was like an in between. So if they do stuff like that, maybe they can have four temporarily. It's a major, minor, major, minor. But I really would like to. I'm on board with you. Once they hit that beta, which is all the pillars are in place, they have to have less and less releases. Now in beta, you can't really have too many less releases for the same
Yeah.
reasons because you still need tens of thousands of people playing it before you can spot bugs or performance issues. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, in beta, I think four is too much. It would have to be two maybe with a couple of minors or two and a minor or something like that.
Yeah.
So
It just feels like every quarter at the moment, and we'll end it here and go to the next call. But you'll obviously be able to respond to this. The every it just feels like every quarter now, other than 315, just feels kind of meh. And it does. I just would, from my perspective, I wouldn't need to care as much about having them do a patch every 3 months if the content in it was enjoyable and more progression can happen in the game each time they actually do release one. And if it was every 4 months instead of three, I wouldn't be upset about it.
yeah, I actually agree with you. I think they do need to. This is why 316, from what I've read and heard, compared to past patches where they nerfed it basically, is kind of
Yes.
encouraging for me, because that means that they're listening to the community, and I
Yeah.
think it is a great idea. Instead of having these patches that break stuff, like have a patch that ties it back together
Yeah.
temporarily, even just so the gameplay is there.
Yep.
I, personally, for me, last thought, I think they're gonna have to do that because there's so much negativity around Star Citizen and how it's a scam and all of that stuff that they're going to have to start as these things come, as the years continue going on, they're going to have to start focusing on the user experience.
Yeah.
So
Not to hammer
hopefully.
Jumptown too much more,
Mhm.
but I think the perfect example of like, yo, bring a bunch of people together in one place on a server, and this game can actually be quite cool. Figure out more ways to do that, and utilize the current game in like smart ways and more effective ways, and you're gonna find a lot more people saying a lot less bad things about the game.
Yep, absolutely, I agree with you. I've been enjoying everyone playing Jumptown. I haven't participated myself because I'm not a good PvE player, but I've been watching, and it's been pretty exciting watching as well. So
Mm-hmm. All right,
overall, I've had a
Champasta.
pretty good experience. But yeah, it was nice talking to you.
It was great talking to you too, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All
Take
right.
it easy.
Thank you for your insight, man. All right. Bye bye now.
No problem. Yep. Bye.
Okay. I hung up on him kind of quick there. Whoopsies. But IDD is next, and we actually had a caller pop out, so I'll have to add your name in IDD. IDD was and is an old school answer the caller from back in the day, from the early days, and he also has a bit of a game development background. I don't know. Are you doing it professionally now, or are you still doing it um kind of for fun on the side? I cannot hear you if you're speaking. Hmm. He's trying to talk. But here, pop out and come back in, IDD, and try and get your mic figured out. I'll go solo for a moment. I've had this issue in Discord a few times now, but I don't know. I just am of the point in this game where I am not ready. He's got it fixed. Okay. I'm not ready to just say that the current experience is acceptable anymore. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. And I think the game has enough that if we just lift up what is there, it'll be good enough to become more patient. All right, IDD, are you here now?
Yeah.
All right, I hear him now. Awesome. Let's go there and there. Okay, perfect. I think I might have to bring your volume up a bit, but I hear you.
Yeah, Discord was trolling me. Sometimes it just deletes my input device.
Yep. Good old Discord. So you definitely had a differing opinion from what I did. Do you still?
Yes.
You have the floor then.
The thing, what got me triggered, what got me actually, where I decided to call in, was when you had in your intro the little comparison to other MMOs out there, and you were making the case, well, other MMOs out there don't patch that often, like maybe once or twice a year. And
major patches, yes.
Major patches, content patches, right?
Mm-hmm. Content patches, yeah.
And I felt more comfortable talking about that from the top of my head because I played World of Warcraft since vanilla release in 2005 for like way too long, 4 or 5 years straight, and then different expansions here and there in between. The thing is, even if I go back to vanilla World of Warcraft, you already had content and you had a core gameplay loop, which was the loot in the game itself. Like you had character progression. And after that, all that content patches did was adding more content that you already had, like more 5-player dungeons, more raids, more locations to explore, etc. And
just building upon the features that are already there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that was like I think World of Warcraft was or is now on a 2-year schedule, 2 or 2.5 years for every new expansion. And the new expansions is where you get new stuff, but still building on top of the existing gameplay systems. And I think Star Citizen doesn't have enough content to overcome like a 8-month content drought.
Me neither. But I'm not.
And
so that's the one thing that I tried to really make sure I said is I'm not arguing for another 3.0.
I honestly can't remember what 3.0 was. Was it Lowell?
It was a year without a patch.
Ah. I mean,
and that
we
was
had those
horrible.
before, right?
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that we should go back to anything like that, but that doesn't mean that you can't do something similar to what a released game would do, in the sense of lift up the features, add to the current features in the game, which there are not many, right? But maybe, for example, one of I think the best examples right now is we have cargo in the game, but the cargo refactor lifts that up and makes it more interesting. That's okay. But what do you do with that together? Well, you better have vehicle-based tractor beams. You better have selling. You better have, I don't know, better inventory management, and you better have this persistent hangar thing that they want to do, where when you do order cargo, it goes to your hangar and then you put it on your ship. That's what they want to do. Those things need to come together. That needs to be, in my mind, the next content patch. That is not a WoW expansion. That is not building out 5 different star systems and making sure that they have a unique raid at that place. That would be comparing it to WoW. I was comparing it to Elite Dangerous, which was adding feet to their current game or adding a giant ship to their current game. I think those two things are very different.
I mean, I wouldn't say adding a giant ship to the game is content anyway.
Okay,
Because
agreed. Because Elite Dangerous
if that's
was
the case,
laughable
if
in
that-
those things.
If
But
that's the case, like Star Citizen has content patches for a period of time, like every 2 weeks.
yes, I think you know what I mean, though, because those brought
Yeah.
unique gameplay with them, and they say what you want about those capital ships, whatever they're called. They were bad, but it still was something that they were focused on a specific thing. And I feel like CIG is like, a cat, and there's all these strings around, and they don't know which one to grab at times, which is just basically sounds like what agile
Exactly, yes.
development is.
I totally understand what you mean, and I think I championed that idea like 4 years ago when I said Star Citizen's development, they are stretching themselves way too thin, and
Yeah.
they need to focus on a few things and do them right.
Yeah.
And then you can expand on that. For example, or more like a recap, what I championed back then. Everything Squadron 42 related, like Squadron 42 is at the utmost priority. And Squadron 42, what's the core gameplay? It's combat related, right?
Absolutely.
So you can integrate because it would be madness if the development of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen differ that much, because you're literally building 2 games at that time. But you can transition over Squadron 42 features like combat into Star Citizen. I think they are actually doing that. I'm not following the development right now that closely. I just tune into your weekly reviews here and there, and the features I see getting into Star Citizen are actually features they need in Squadron 42 for the most part. So I think they're already doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of importing Squadron 42 related content into Star Citizen, what Star Citizen has right now is cargo hauling and mining. And in my opinion, that should be the 2 features Star Citizen should build out, like really flesh out the systems. Because only if you're building up on something existing, you see or you discover potential bottlenecks.
Sure.
And if you do that with like 5 professions at the same time, now all of a sudden you might have to change like major parts of the code because you reached a bottleneck for 5 professions instead of 2.
Yeah.
So that way you are delaying development even more, like they do right now. And the benefit is when you concentrate on the 2 professions I mentioned, you actually have a playable game for a certain group of people. Of course, if you're an explorer, it sucks. But you still have, for the meanwhile, fleshed out gameplay systems you can play with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that keeps you engaged into the game for the time or for the period of time the next content patch comes out. And I'm going little bit off road right now, but I think that that has always been the issue of Chris Roberts. He treats Star Citizen like a single player game, like a game that is released and has every feature imaginable
He
in
even
it already
says it.
fleshed out.
He even
Well,
kind of
then
says
it's
it
even worse.
sometimes. Like, we have more content than Sea of Thieves. Like, we have similar things that
Oh,
all
yeah.
these AAA games out there
I
have.
remember.
Like, what are you talking about, dude? What are you saying?
I mean, to be fair, you might have more content than Sea of Thieves when he said at the time he said that. But Sea of Thieves, I mean, it was shallow, but it had a couple of gameplay loops that were actually complete.
Fleshed out. Yeah.
Right. I
Which
mean, you
allows
can
for
always
more
expand
content.
on it.
Yeah.
Right. You
But for the
can
player.
expand on it, but what you have is a complete loop and playable.
Yeah.
And what I see is that he wants to release, quote unquote, release this complete finished product, and that is simply not how MMOs work. And that is not even like the current bane of the industry, live service games work.
Yeah.
You need to have something to build upon, to expand upon. But Star Citizen has so many things in tier 1 states. And then what? Like you're literally going nowhere slowly that way.
Yeah. And that's what it feels like. That's why I'm like, can we bring these out of that state and get these things? Can we stop doing what we've been doing and do something different? And is the different releasing less often and kind of focus on something?
Well, to go back again on what you initially said, why aren't they expanding on the cargo hauling experience? That's because people are working on refueling, salvaging,
No, they
whatever,
are expanding on
to
it.
get that.
It's coming.
They are expanding on it. Yeah, but it could be far more, like, how do I say it? It could be faster. There could be more. You could be making more progress in a shorter amount of time if you don't have so many people working on so many other things that maybe 2 or 3 years down the road.
It's
So
frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I have experiences in the game that are so good, and it's just like, why can't we just build off of them? Like, I look at I look again at Jumptown and go, all you did was send us to an area. How do we do this with the other features that we have in the game? How can we expand on this and make it more interesting? How can we utilize, I don't know, security post Korea? I was talking to literally the developers about it, and they gave an excuse that was valid, but also felt frustrating to hear, which was like, I said, oh, well, why don't you just put certain guns in certain locations? And then they were like, well, if we do that, it wouldn't be exciting. If they went there and found those guns, that excitement wouldn't be there anymore. But it was like, well, what if everybody really needed those guns and that was the only place to get them? Then there would always be excitement there. It just wouldn't be about the gun.
Well, the question is, would it be more exciting than it is today?
I think so.
But
that's me.
If that answer is yes, why not implement it?
Yeah.
Like, look at it as a stepping stone, and then you can expand on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's really tough because you can, if you look at 1 year at a time, you can definitely see the progress. But then you look on your second monitor at the checklist that they still have to do and want to do,
Yeah.
and you think to yourself, well, that's 10 plus more years away at the current stage.
Yeah.
And
I just feel like we got a patch that excited me, but we got it in a state that could have been better. And if they didn't feel rushed to get it out so they can start working on 316, the patch that they literally put nothing into the game for, we would have a better experience in the game now. And I just look up at the sky and just be like, why can't we just do things like other companies?
Because of bad decisions made like 5-6 years ago. And I honestly,
go back.
I don't think, I'm just not sure they can go back on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the widespread development and not and they can't really go to the more focused development. And in focused, I mean on a couple of things.
Okay.
I'm just not sure because they expanded the team by so much. They I mean the only solution were to let them go for a period of time until they need them again. And I don't know.
I mean, they're still hiring. I feel like they need more and more and more, but I don't know what they're doing because we don't see it on our screens. Is what it feels like. It feels like we're making more progress, but not to the point that I would expect them to. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this, but I still feel like there's no way we should be getting 4 patches a year anymore, unless they're like what the last caller said, like kind of a TikTok scenario.
But isn't the issue also, like I make the Warcraft comparison again, the expansion launch, the beta phase for an expansion launch is much longer.
Yeah.
Because it's more stuff simply.
Yep.
And the beta phase for content patches, because they're smaller, are also shorter. So wouldn't that mean if you go back from like 4 patches a year to 2 or 3, that they also have more stuff in it, and the beta phase is longer than you have right now? Because
perhaps, or they put the same amount of stuff
integrated.
they put in the last patch, and they just make sure they take an extra month and make sure it's clean, and not a shit show like it is now.
I feel like the issue is, and I'm not sure it's comparable to general game development, but I feel like in the past it didn't even matter how long it took for a patch to release to PTR. Some were broken, some were not, and then from PTR you go to live, and suddenly live is completely broken. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know if they even have the personnel, like the capabilities of testing a patch so thoroughly that it doesn't break if you release it to the public.
No, it's on us, and that's why I mentioned with the last caller too that it's imperative that we're enticed and needed to join the PTU and get in there and be excited about it. Otherwise, all this is pointless.
Yeah,
it falls on us to report the bugs because they're incapable of it. The game's too big. There's no way. And like the last caller said, some things just don't show up unless thousands of people are playing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what can you do? They have to make the PTU somehow more enticing. But I don't know. Kind of feels like we're running around in circles at this point now, so
yeah, you come up with so many ideas, and each idea spawns another problem.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, I don't know. Sometimes I just want to give up, and other times I want to try harder. But I'm somewhere in between right now.
Yeah, the issue is you are not in the driver's seat, right? So
True.
you have to take it as it comes.
Yeah. Somebody in chat said, and this is like a really good point, and it's just dumb for them to launch another star system when the Stanton system is so bad. Like, there's stuff to do there, but is there enough? Is it complete? Is it a complete star system? Is it good enough? Who knows? But is also part of the game like releasing a jump point. Like, that needs to exist too. So if they're capable of releasing a jump point, they need to do that. Maybe they don't go past the second star system, right? But that's
Yeah,
it.
but
Just prove
at
that you can
at some
jump from
point-
one to another. Then it works.
Yeah,
Then,
exactly.
then you just expand exponentially from there. It doesn't matter. Then the focus has to be on, like, okay, well, what do we do there? But I think that's off topic. So, IDD, unless you have something else you want to say, I appreciate it. But
No, not really.
yeah, I think I got the feeling that you were kind of done and we were just going back and forth. But I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you
yeah.
for coming on. I love you, man. I hope everything's good.
Thanks for having me.
And
See ya,
I'll
buddy.
See you soon. Yeah, bye-bye. So, guys, I think that'll do it for the show. That's there was no other callers in the queue. It's frustrating. It's frustrating because it's a situation where the game feels really close. Jumptown is like all we got, as in like, wow, it was so good. The game doesn't feel really close. It just feels really close to being like a somewhat enjoyable experience. And I'm just wrapping my head around anything possible to make it better. And how do we do things better? What were they doing before? Why doesn't it make sense to me? And can it be better? And I don't know. I just don't know. And the only thing I can think of is, can we let patches marinate a little bit longer and be a little bit better? That's it. If something doesn't work out, go, figure it out. But, if a feature can't make it in, it can't make it in. Take a little bit longer. Give yourself another month. Nobody cares about waiting if the experience that you're waiting in is good enough. And it's not good enough yet, but it can be. It feels realistic that it can be. And that's where we'll leave today's show. Thank you for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Lola, what do you think about quarterly releases? Exactly. Get them out of here. So, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have a great day. Once again, if you didn't catch the whole show, it'll be up on YouTube later today. If you're watching on YouTube and you ever wanted to partake in the show, discord.gg/SaltEMike is where we do all the calls, and twitch.tv/SaltEMike is where everybody's watching. So thank you so much. Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and we'll see you guys next week. It still feels kind of like we're in a lull, so I'll probably bring on a content creator since nobody's like very passionate about a certain feature or subject or anything in Star Citizen. I feel really strongly about this, that just the experience and watching the way they've reacted to having to hit a date has caused the issues in the game. And even more so, it was related to ship sale patches. IAE and the Invictus launch week. Those two specific patches have ruined more about this game than any other. So thank you so much, guys. We'll leave it, but I really hope in the future we're not dealing with this kind of crap. So it could be better. Bye-bye.